I don't have my mic, so I don't know if this is going to sound like absolute garbage. I shoot everything in the same place, and I don't know where it went. Dang it. Panther people, what up? The Panthers defense lost a lot of stars. Will they be able to make up for it? I'll let you know. What's going on? You watch Panthers post to Phil Perkins. Thanks for joining. All right, so I talk about the offense a lot because, let's be real, that's where the sizzle is right now in the NFL. As much as I love defensive players, I love your Luke Kuechlys, your Brian Urlachers, your Julius Peppers, your Zach Thomases out there. But, if you want to pay the bills, you got to get some quarterbacks. You got to get some wide receivers and running backs. And so and also I played running back. I tried to play linebacker once against our rival school. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I didn't even understand that there were defensive plays. Again, this is in high school. I was like, why can't we all just get the guy with the ball? I'm an offensive guy. But let's talk about the defense, because arguably it is the one that is getting the least amount of looks right now in the offseason in terms of media attention. But it is probably as we have seen in the last couple of years, the stronger half or the stronger third of this roster. And the key word for the Carolina Panthers defense is consistency. And Joe Evero being the defensive coordinator, Don Capers is still there. You got all their positional coaches still around. And that alone will make them in a better position in the offense right now. The offense we're going to see, it's going to have its growing pains. With the defense, despite the fact that they lost a lot of guys, like a lot of guys that people literally bought their jerseys for. Like, these weren't just fill in the gap guys. These are guys who I thought were going to retire as Carolina Panthers. Let's talk about the losses. Obviously, nothing more than Brian Burns. He was a guy that, 2% of me thought that he was going to be a Panther for life. I think once Scott Fitterer turned around and did not take those two first-round picks from the Los Angeles Rams for Brian Burns 2 years ago. Dan Morgan took his place, that he would try to right that wrong, if you want to call it that, for lack of better terms, and get rid of him, realizing the situation that he found himself in with the team itself. So, obviously, he's a guy I thought was going to be a Carolina Panther for life. He was a guy who was going to get his jersey. He just seemed like him and Bryce Young just felt like, Venom and Spider-Man, even though he thinks he's Spider-Man. Bryce, he looks like Miles Morales. Brian Burns, just the size difference, looks like Venom compared to Peter Parker and a much younger Spider-Man. So losing him, obviously, is massive. You're not going to replace him with Jadeveon Clowney. You're not going to replace him with anybody that they drafted this year. It's going to be sometime next year if they're going to draft a defensive end. I've seen a couple too early mock drafts that them getting the guy out of Tennessee, the edge rusher there. I think his last name is Pierce, which would be great for my brother because he's a Seahawks fan, but yeah, I don't think he'd wear that jersey. So that's a massive loss. Another one, Frankie Luvu. That is a guy for sure I thought was going to be a Carolina Panther for absolute life. The fact that they picked him out of obscurity as a special teams guy out of the New York Jets, that was one of the better picks that Scott Fitterer ever made. And for him to flourish in that system, to kind of be our Troy Polamalu, not just because he's Polynesian, but the fact that he just kind of didn't, like I said before, when I played linebacker for one play and they pulled me off quickly, I didn't know that there were defensive plays. It seems like that he doesn't even play within a structure. He just reacts. He's kind of like how the Joker described in The Dark Knight. He's just a dog chasing cars. He doesn't know what to do when he actually gets one. So I felt like Frankie Luvu was just a guy with his hair on fire chasing cars, and I thought he was a great culture guy. They literally a culture guy, talk about the haka, talking about, all the different types of Polynesian culture, AAPI culture that he brought. I thought that, he was a fan favorite, no doubt. He's on the locker that I have here in the studio. I thought he was going to be Panther for life. And then it didn't happen. He's with the Washington Commanders. I don't know what that career will look like for him there. It just seems like anyone who goes to Washington, they collect the check, and then you just kind of never see them again. So that's too bad. And with that, Jeremy Chinn, another guy. I thought he was going to be face of the franchise when I thought that on the defensive side, at least one of them. We had so many faces of the franchise when you think about it. You had Brian Burns, Derek Brown, Frankie Luvu, Jeremy Chinn, Shaq Thompson, of course, and then J.C. Horn, and then Dante Jackson. Like, so many faces, so many recognizable faces, and guys who actually contributed. Say what you want about Dante Jackson. talk about him a little later. But yeah, you lose Jeremy Chinn, a guy who I thought was a leader, no doubt, going into this. I thought, you know, during this regime change, again, with Frank Reich, I thought he's going to be one of the pillars, one of the veterans out there who was going to help guide them through this darkness. But what happened was they put him into darkness. They put him away, and we never saw him again. He played 30% of the snaps. He just didn't fit the scheme. It's not that he was not talented, but, you know, I just thought that was a tough one, personally, because I thought he had the right attitude. I thought he had an amazing rookie season in terms of his plays, some standout plays, arguably one of the defensive players of the year on the rookie side. It just didn't work out. He is now with the Washington Commanders. Again, obscurity. I don't know what's going to happen with him in the future. Dante Jackson, he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's a great place to be for him. He could be a role player there, no doubt. That's another guy who I thought bought in. He wasn't a diva. You know, and I thought that he was a good soldier, and he just couldn't stay healthy. But he was a guy who had a lot of miles in a Carolina Panthers uniform, and now he's not here. And so, yeah. So those are some of the main guys who left, and now you're trying to replace them with, and I've said this before, some guys who might not pound for pound, you know, if you were to look at them on a Madden score, would not necessarily come close to matching. Like, I don't think Jadeveon Clowney is as talented right now and as effective, and will be as effective right now as Brian Burns right now. You know, maybe Jadeveon Clowney during his prime, has he ever really had some of his most amazing seasons was actually just a couple years ago, or just last year with Baltimore in a clutch position. So that, you know, you could say that he's definitely still productive. Will Brian Burns be as productive, as efficient at that point in his career? Maybe. But right now, Jadeveon Clowney is not going to be replacing Brian Burns. He is not as good as Brian Burns. Is Josey Jewell as good as Frankie Louvu right now? No, I don't think so. Is A'Shawn Robinson good enough right now to replace whatever other defensive tackle that they put in next to Derek Brown, who doesn't last very long? Probably. And so this is why. And it's kind of the same way I talk about Dave Canales. Dave Canales adopted a lot of these players. This is why in my last video, which you could probably check out, guys like, who I love, guys like Chuba Hubbard. Happy early Canada Day to you, sir. Guys like Chuba Hubbard, guys like Brady Christensen, guys like Tommy Tremble, who we have known to love, much like the guys like the Brian Burns, the Jeremy Chins out there, and the Dante Jacksons. Maybe not Dante Jackson, but those guys we have learned to appreciate, learn. They've kind of grown on us after some time. Dave Canales doesn't give a heck who these guys are. He's like, bye, you're not my guy, see ya. Which is why, again, in those other episodes, check that out. There's a couple guys who I would be kind of surprised, but, you know, not that surprised if they actually get cut, because they're not Dave Canales guys. He adopted them. Everyone they drafted on offensive side is a Dave Canales guy. So, Ejiro Evero did not draft Brian Burns. He did not draft Frankie Louvu. He did not draft Dante Jackson or Jeremy Chinn. Obviously, didn't even want Jeremy Chinn. Barely used him. But he did work with Josey Jewell. Had his best career in the Denver Broncos uniform under Ejiro Evero. Coach A'Shawn Robinson with the Los Angeles Rams. Did he coach Dane Jackson? Dan Morgan liked Dane Jackson when he was in Buffalo as assistant GM there. And so there's continuity there. And those are the kind of guys that they want. And so I think even though they're not pound for pound, you know, a better player than those guys I mentioned, do I think as a whole, will this defensive squad be better than last year's squad? The squad that was one of the top defensive units in the NFL. But now you're losing the players that made them that. I don't know if Josey Jewell will be better than Frankie Louvu. I just don't. Even despite the fact that he's an assistant that he loves. I think there's a loss there for sure. We'll see what these rookies do. A'Shawn Robinson is a plus. Dane Jackson, hey, if he just stays healthy and he's put into a starter position and he's just healthy and we don't have to have a rotation of rookies, you know, and guys that are picking up on, on the waiver wire, then he's better than Dante Jackson. Just your best ability is your availability. And if he and J.C. Horn could just stay healthy and be a nice 1-2 punch with one side a little bit more elite than the other one, I'm okay with that. So I think that's a plus. So am I harping on? And then Jadeveon Clowney. Is Jadeveon Clowney going to be better than Brian Burns? I mean, if DJ Wonnum can be that bookend defensive end that Brian Burns hasn't had since Hassan Reddick, when Hassan Reddick was there on the other side of Brian Burns, that's when Brian Burns had his great year. That's when he was the best, because the offensive lines had to manage both of these beasts on either end of the defensive line. So when he was on his own, it was just like a rotation of like DJ Johnson, Amari Barno, whoever, and then Justin Houston. Who was he on the team? I don't know. Brian Burns did not get the pressure and did not get the defensive efficiency and the impact, defensive impact that we thought that he could have. Jadeveon Clowney and DJ Wonnum can be formidable on either side. I think both of them will eat this year. So as a whole, do I think the Panthers will perform better than last year's team? I think yes. And the reason why is also the continuity, but also this is Bryce Young's second year as a pro. He has more offensive weapons. He has a much better offensive line, specifically in the interior. I'm sure you guys are hating this now because I was literally talking about defense, and we never talk about defense, and here I am somehow squeezing the offensive talk into this. But how many times did the defense have to come back on the field huffing and puffing because this offense could not hold a drive, could not score, could not hold on to the ball, he had fumbles from Bryce, he had interceptions, he had fumble interceptions and pickups from wide receivers who couldn't catch properly because they weren't thrown properly because their quarterback was getting rushed right out the middle. So I think as the offensive line has improved, the skill position players have improved. You have a second-year pro right now in Bryce Young with a better system that works along his strengths. The defense can actually catch a darn breath, get an IV, get some oxygen, get a jelly, get whatever, get a massage, get a Theragun, whatever. I think they'll be more rested, and I think they'll be better off next year than they were last year because as a whole, as a team, it sounds crazy because as a rookie head coach, are in a better position to at least help each other. Maybe not be better, but help each other. And I think that will help the defense because at least they'll get a freaking break. I hope. If not, then I don't know. But I think they will be better than last year. Again, while some of the additions, pound for pound, aren't as good as the guys who are out of the building now wearing different jerseys, as a collective unit with the defensive head coach, with the new head coach, and the new pieces on offense to keep the offense on the field for long, sustained drives so the defense comes in nice and refreshed, I think they'll be better off. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think the defense will be worse? Do you think it'll be better? Do you think it'll be about the same? Let me know in the comments below.